Hi everyone! In this presentation, we'll be taking a look at what personal protective equipment, otherwise known as PPE, should look like. PPE comes in many forms, and under the Personal Protective Equipment at Work regulations of 1992, they fall under part of your legal obligations as an employer. Through the next few slides, we'll be taking an in-depth look at PPE and outlining the hazards, solutions, and considerations by body part. Before we get going, it's worth pointing out that all PPE must meet BS and/or EN standards. This is to ensure that the items you're implementing to protect employees have been rigorously tested and are fit for purpose. So let's get started. There are a number of hazards that can put employees' eyes in harm's way. For example, activities that could cause chemical or metal splash, dust, gas, vapor, projectile particles, and radiation. To protect employees' eyes from any of the above, you should introduce things like safety spectacles, goggles, face shields, and visors. When deciding what protective measures to implement, carefully consider which is most appropriate for the job. For example, if an employee is completing a task where chemical fumes are produced as a byproduct of the process involved, you'd need to ensure that they're using eye protection that's compatible with other types of PPE that's needed, like a face mask, for example. The most common head injuries at work are caused by falling or flying objects, hair entanglement, and bumps to the head. To reduce the risk of head injuries, you should provide employees with protective headwear, like a bump cap, helmet, or hard hat. As well as providing them with the headwear, remember to make sure that employees are actually wearing them how they should and where they should. For tasks where employees could be at risk by breathing in hazardous substances, respiratory protective equipment, otherwise known as RPE, is needed, which is a specialist type of PPE. If employees are working with or near dust, vapor, or gas, they'll need PPE that prevents them from inhaling any harmful fumes. And if they're in an oxygen-deficient workplace, they'll need equipment that supplies them with sufficient oxygen to prevent things like losing consciousness. RPE options include a disposable face piece or respirator, half or full face respirator, air-fed helmet, or breathing apparatus. If you're using equipment with filters, remember they don't have an infinite life expectancy. When replacing filters, make sure you buy parts that align with the manufacturer's guidance. When it comes to hazards to the body, there's lots to look out for. Temperature extremes, chemical or metal splash, impact or penetration, and excessive wear or entanglement of an employee's clothing are just a few of the things that you need to consider. To overcome these hazards, PPE options include conventional or disposable overalls, boiler suits, high-vis clothing, and specialist protective clothing, like chainmail aprons. When it comes to hands and arms, the main hazards are abrasion, temperature extremes, cuts and punctures, impact, chemicals, electric shocks, infection, disease, or contamination. To overcome these risks, consider providing effective employees with gloves, gauntlets, mitts, wrist cuffs, or armlets. If you're thinking about introducing gloves though, think about any residual risks the glove itself could pose. For example, if employees are wearing gloves while using machinery, could the glove become caught in the machinery? As well as this, you need to consider the material of your PPE. So, for example, will the material stop chemicals from seeping through? Will it be tough enough to withstand any tears should an employee slip, trip, or fall? Last but not least is feet and legs. For the lower half of the body, the biggest threats come in the form of wet, electrostatic buildup, slipping, cuts and punctures, falling objects, abrasion, and metal and chemical splash. Popular PPE choices to overcome these dangers include safety boots and shoes with protective toe caps, a midsole, gaiters, leggings, and spats that are penetration resistant. When it comes to footwear, it's important to test which option is safest for the circumstance. For example, generally speaking, shoes with a close-packed tread pattern tend to be better suited to work with fluid and indoor environments, while more open pattern treads work well outdoors and with solid contaminants. If you need a hand with any or all of your business's PPE, get in touch with our health and safety experts on 0345 844 1111.